Grace Naledi Pandor is a South African politician, educator and academic who has served as the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation since 2019. Naledi Pandor has made some accusations about the African Union which I think are very serious. I want us to watch this video. I will be back.
We are faced with a very challenged world. I realized this when in 2021 I was sitting in a summit of the Executive Council of the African Union, and it was whispered to me that the African Union Commission chairperson had issued an invitation to Israel to become an observer at the African Union. Imagine my horror. I decided at that moment that I would raise my arm and would propose that this decision be rescinded. I walked around the room seeking supporters. Of the 54 nations, I got 3. And I include SADC in that. But I said, nevertheless, this is not going to happen. I therefore lifted my arm and said I wish to table a matter. I have learnt of this, and as South Africa, we object to it, and it must not be implemented. We want our leaders to discuss it. And we will never accept it as South Africa, and while we appreciate the role that the Organization of African Unity played in us achieving our freedom as South Africa, this decision of the AU Commission chairperson will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. I thought I would get support from many of the countries gathered in the room. But what I discovered is that countries that are oppressors, that continue to be colonial occupiers, are using financial muscle to provide grant in aid to African countries and secure the depoliticized support of African countries for these oppressive nations. Among them, Israel and Morocco. They're playing a very negative role in Africa. And comrades, I'm being frank here because you, in this room, you are supposed to be trade union leaders, many of you, or you lead progressive organizations, and you are failing in your duty to convince governments in Africa and all other countries of the South that they cannot tolerate such situations. It can't be left to us as members of government to be the ones that take up these issues with no word from progressive organizations. This is intolerable and cannot continue. So I'm hoping out of this conference that you are going to decide, rise up, rise up, rise up. Don't say what's Comrade Naledi doing. That decision on Israel hasn't been implemented, and it won't be while I'm still there. But what are you going to do? You should be talking to all progressive unions worldwide. The unions in the United States of America, weak or strong, should be making it clear to President Biden they don't appreciate his statement, which has led to the slaughter we are seeing today. The union movement in the United Kingdom should be doing the same. If we know our work, I have no idea what has happened to our organizational capability. Because as South African leadership, our trade union movement was able to marshal under the worst oppressive chains. We were able to marshal international solidarity of a kind that has not been seen since the struggle against apartheid. Where have all these progressive leaders gone and why? Why are we not able to organize? Why are we only sitting in a room as 300? There should be 3,000 here. There's something wrong, and that's why I'm saying we're in a troubled world. And we need to recognize that the world has shifted. Because what has happened is, in a determined fashion, progressive values and principles have been hacked and hacked and hacked, and it is now difficult to find a voice of the left. And we need to revive. We need to organize. We need to be smart. We need to be strategic. And one thing I've realized is making good speeches does not assist. I may feel good that I had the right rhetoric at that platform, but if the next day my rhetoric has not led to action, my speech was useless. So I hope out of this, NUMSA is going to lead a process where Comrade Irvin Jim and Comrade Chirwa will meet with their counterparts in all unions, whatever they are, and say, as South African trade union movement, let us lead. Let us lead. Let us agree for 1 month. None of our unions are going to lift any Israeli goods out of any transport. Just one thing. And let us see whether our leadership has convening power or not. This week, coming, a number of proposed resolutions are going to come before the United Nations. We must keep our eye on that process. We must ensure it's the right kind of resolutions. Today, the people of Palestine are in need of help. They need medical supplies. They are unable to bandage wounds. They cannot provide help. Médecins Sans Frontières is doing a good job. They're absolutely there, but they are also being decimated. What are we going to do about that? Let's ask every South African, there are 62 million of us, they say. All of us must donate one thing, food or medical goods. And let us persuade an airline to take them all to the Egyptian border with Palestine and deliver those goods. Let's do something, comrades. Let's stop talking, because the world is in a terrible place, and all it needs are a few good men and women, are organizers, strategists. And not to organize because you're NUMSA only, but to organize everybody. What we have to put aside if you want to change the world are divisions between us. Because it doesn't make any sense to believe that I must be the most progressive, the most left, the most radical, and the world is suffering. The most progressive thing is to unite and get action. And that's what I hope you're going to begin to do. So anyway, on my story, on the presence of Israel as an observer in the African Union, I have managed to pause it for now with the support of my president, but it's not off the table in the AU. So again, I'm asking you, pay attention.
Yes, that was Naledi Pandor. Naledi Pandor. And as I described her position in the South African government at the moment, in the earlier of my presentation. So that was her. And as it stands now, most of the African regional bloc organizations like ECOWAS, SADC, East African regional, economic something. All of these groups or all of these organizations seems to be controlled, or let me say they have been compromised. Most of this organization has been compromised to serve the interest of some Western countries, because as it stands now, most of decisions they are taking, they normally takes, don't favor the ordinary African. It just favor some few leaders who are cashing out, making huge amount of money from these Western countries. And it's very sad because all these regional bloc economic organizations were formed on the basics of Pan-Africanism. These regional groups were formed in the basic of Pan-Africanism, and if you realized, this is what has happened in West Africa, which is ECOWAS, that has led the resignation of 3 countries, which is Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They think the ideology which ECOWAS was formed on has now turned, and the ECOWAS was formed based on Pan-Africanism, but now they are rather doing the opposite. They have submitted the organization to their puppet masters, and now they dictate what happens in the ECOWAS as an organization. And that is what has led Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali to resign from or withdraw from this organization. So mentioning African Union and how they seems to be in bed with Israel is not news. It's not news because it's the same organizations in the regional blocs that formed the African Union. And African Union sadly was formed by people that believe in Pan-Africanism, who decided not to form African Union to make sure that they are not going to be under any power, any outside power, which is any Western countries, to dictate to them. But as it stands now, African Union has become toothless, and they have, they have also turned the organization, the Western countries has turned the organization into a puppet organization more than Pan-African organization. I think somewhere in 2009 coming, I think Gaddafi was the president of African Union, and he contributed immensely to the development of the African Union, or the uplifting of African Union. And Gaddafi was a true Pan-Africanist who fought for many African countries, gave loans to many African countries, brought ideas about how Africans should unite, and he brought policies that was going to help Africa in terms of, how should I put it, in terms of forming their own banks and taking loans from that particular bank instead of going to outside country. But what was the end product? The end product was African Union sat back when they needed them. He needed them the most. He was killed on the streets of Tripoli. Gaddafi was killed on the street, and African Union couldn't do anything about it. So if a certain country can just come to one of your partners, which is Libya, which is Libya has played a huge role in when we talk of Pan-Africanism. So if some country can just come into your continent and decide to eliminate which leader they want, then the African Union end up being a bogus, because they are toothless. So any country can just come to your country and just decide to eliminate a leader who is part of you, and you can't do anything about it. Then there is no use of being part with the African Union, and that is what Naledi Pandor is saying, what is happening there, then it's better the withdrawal from the African Union if things keep on continuing like the way it is. It's about time Africa's old way of doing things come to an end. It's about time the old way of doing things come to an end, because as it stands now, the new generations are very wise. The new generation are enlightened. We understand what has happened, and we understand what is still happening, and we are not going to sit back for it to continue to happen. Please join my Telegram group through my description box. Go through my description box, click on the Telegram link. It will take you to the Telegram group. Join us as we discuss the well-being of African continent. Please, you should also subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I upload any great content, you will be notified. You can also follow me on all the social media handles by I am De-Graft, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And you are not going to be disappointed. I'm going to bring you an insight of Africa from all corners of Africa. Thanks for watching.